All right, man. We are back with another episode of Call Your Attorney. You know what I'm saying? We have Simone, we have Brian, we have legal experts in here, you know what I'm saying, to assist us, help us understand what's going on in these cases. Obviously, it's a lot of stuff, a lot of crime going on out here, man. So, how y'all doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me back.
We
I'm your legal bestie, Attorney Simone. You can follow me on Instagram at Attorney Simone Redwine or YouTube at Girl, Is That Legal?
And then I'm Brian Crockett. You can find me on Instagram on Bank of Brian TX. If there's any injury, any type of injury, you want to find out if you have a potential case where you can sue for an injury, reach out to us. We'll let you know. And if it's something we don't handle, we'll be able to get you somebody who can.
Okay. Let's jump all the way into this thing. You know what I'm saying? So, obviously, Jay-Z, he's got a case going on. We got A$AP Rocky, he's got a case going on. There's
let's
a lot
talk
of
about
cases
both of
going
them.
around.
Mhm.
So, I want to start with Jay-Z first because I heard him a couple months ago on the radio. It's a lot of stuff going on with the Diddy stuff. And, you know what I'm saying? Did he settle, though? Did he settle? I see that it dropped. What's going on?
Yeah, okay, so let me clarify.
Did he?
Did it? I know, right? So Diddy did settle with Cassie, but this Jane Doe case brought by attorney Tony Busby in Houston, baby, didn't nobody settle. Didn't nobody settle there. What ended up happening instead was that Tony Busby was forced to look at the facts and look at the evidence, and he was given one choice: dismiss this case or get the brake suit off of you. And he said, I don't want the brake suit off of me because it would have had to come out of his pocket. So let me tell you the facts. So what happened was there was a woman who was filed under Jane Doe. She claimed that basically she was 13 years old and she was essayed by both Diddy and Jay-Z, that this was at a party that happened after the VMAs. Basically, she was 13 years old. She wanted to go to the VMAs. She was like talking to the drivers of different limos outside of the VMAs when one of them said, "Ooh, you look just like Diddy's type." Well, then they interviewed her. It was CNN, I believe, who interviewed her and basically found all these holes in her story, including she claimed that after the assault, her father picked her up, and it was a 5-hour drive from Rochester where she lived. He drove 5 hours. He picked her up, but he didn't ask her any questions. Now, I don't know your dad. I don't know any father who would drive 5 hours to pick a woman up, to pick their daughter up at 13 from anywhere without asking questions. How about you?
No, I think there'd be a lot of questions. I know my dad would never drove me to meet any woman, try as I might. Yeah. But if he would have drove me 5 hours, I think that would have been very supportive of me.
Yeah, that would have been, my dad would have had questions and a pow in his hand. Okay. And my dad, on the way there, because it's 5 hours, he would have called a police station. Well, she claims that that's what happened. They interviewed her father. CNN found her father. He said, I don't remember this happening, because it didn't. In the end, what happened was Jay-Z filed what's called a motion for sanctions. And here's a breakdown of how we know Jay-Z settled without paying a dime based on the evidence. So in New York, you can file a sanctions motion. And what that means is the motion is saying, hey, this lawyer should have never filed this case because it's full of ish. It is straight lies, and a basic investigation into the truth would have let them know that this was a frivolous case, right? And so what New York says, I'm licensed in New York, Texas, New Jersey. I went to Cornell Law, so that's how I know New York law. It says, before you file that sanctions motion, because if you win a sanctions motion, Jay-Z would get millions. He could get pain and suffering. He could get money to compensate him for the embarrassment. For a Jay-Z, that could easily be $50 million, easily. But New York says, hey, before we can even hear your motion, you have to prove to us that you first went to Tony Busby, showed him all your evidence, and gave him a chance to review the evidence and dismiss it on his own. So he's like, eh. So he went back. He did just that. Mr. Busby looked over the evidence and dismissed it. As a result, Jay-Z can't sue Busby under New York law for a dime.
And I think that's like a really important point, which is a lot of times clients will come to you and they will tell you all the facts or information that they know helps their case. Yeah. But they'll think if I prove to my attorney and I leave out all the other facts that really destroy the case, that, in the end, that, hey, if as long as my attorney believes in the case, then that means that this case is going to go forward. And the biggest problem is that the other side has the opportunity to say, hey, there's a lot of problems with your case. And so once that information comes out, once you get more, knowledge into what your client didn't tell you, then you really do have these options of saying, hey, am I going to still continue to pursue this? Or am I going to, look at the writing on the wall and say, hey, I'm going to dismiss this and get out of it. And I think that, I do personal injury, and there's a lot of times where we represent injured workers, we represent, people from all walks of life. And a lot of times they've had past injuries or they've had past problems, and the employer knows about some of these things. And then we make a claim for an injury that happened, and they say, well, they had this happen previously or before they showed up. And so once you get that information, it does kind of give you a new perspective. Yeah. And a lot of times you're like, I wish you would have told me that from the get-go. That way we would have known, hey, can we really represent you, or can we actually pursue this on your behalf? And so.
Also, the other thing that many don't realize is that Tony Buzbee is taking these cases for no upfront cost. In turn, did you realize that?
So when I had first initially heard about it, I heard about it on the radio. This was one morning I'm going to go work out, and they were talking about it on the radio. They said, yeah, Jay-Z issued a statement towards Tony Buzbee. Can't remember the statement verbatim, obviously, but he was also saying that, like, this dude is notorious for this. Like, he's got a pretty bad image right now of doing, being involved in cases that have
no merit. That's what we call it, no merit. Yes. So
initially I'm like, this is perfect timing. We know what's going on with Diddy, but it just, the one thing that didn't sit right with me was 13, 14 years old, being the minor, and going to a party, a Diddy party, or the VMAs. Yeah, but then on top of that, when you say that the 5-hour drive, that's pretty crazy to me too. Because how did the minor get from point A to point B?
Right. She said she rode with a homegirl of hers.
Which is
but your homegirl is 13 too, so she can't drive.
Yeah, it's a lot going on in this case that doesn't add up.
That doesn't add up. And speaking of that, Jay-Z made a statement, and in his statement, he said justice was not served. Jay-Z's attorney acknowledged, he said no money has been paid. And when Jay-Z said no justice has been served, what he's referring to is that because of the New York law that I just explained, Jay-Z cannot recover a dime from Mr. Buzbee. And many people, despite on my channel, Girl Is That Legal, I've done a little breakdown of this, and people either didn't watch the video or think I'm lying, right? And in the comments, they were like, no, Jay-Z paid. He paid. He just didn't tell the court. Maybe I'm trying to tell you right now, if he paid, he wouldn't say justice has not been served. Also, if you've paid, you cannot say, I did not pay a dime. Because, Brian, what happens if we have a confidentiality agreement in a case like this that says we cannot talk to the public about the settlement dollar amount, and one party goes out to the public and says, I didn't pay a dime? What happens then, Brian?
Yeah, so you have a breach of confidentiality, then the other party could be able to come forward and say, actually, you did, and then all that information comes out.
Yes!
And so the biggest
screenshots and everything,
the biggest thing really is if you have something like that happen where someone's making these statements. Now, granted, it does happen sometimes where somebody says,
usually it's the opposite. Somebody will say, I got $10 million, and you're not supposed to say. But never does it happen where someone says, I didn't pay a dime, because it triggers and allows the other person to say, yes, you do. Here's the settlement agreement. Here's my signature. And do you think Mr. Buzbee, if Mr. Buzbee had received anything for his client, that he would go public?
Well, I would say that if you were in the same situation, depending upon how minuscule that settlement could have ever been, if there was one, maybe you wouldn't bring it up. But generally speaking, if somebody said they didn't pay anything, then you'd be able to throw in your hat and say, actually, you did. And we haven't heard that. So
right. And specifically with Mr. Buzbee, the kind of like image and reputation, if he got 10 million, baby, you know. You know, right? Do you agree, Brian? Right. Yeah, you know. And if he got nothing, you would never hear from him. He's not going to tell you he didn't get anything. But I also want to speak to a second thing. So there's two reasons we know Jay-Z paid zero. Number one is what I just described. Number two is New York law. New York State has a special law that says if you are settling a case that involves allegations of SA, we're saying SA for YouTube reasons, If there are allegations of SA, you cannot have a confidentiality provision. Why? Because the people of New York deserve to be warned that you are a predator. Therefore, if money had been exchanged, baby, Busby would be telling everybody, because there is no settlement agreement in the universe of agreements that would prevent him from doing so, because the law says he can speak from the mountaintops and that he should.
Okay. I have a question for y'all.
Sure.
So y'all being attorneys, how often do y'all face the troubles or the problems of a client coming in and not giving you all the details, and then it just blows up and it's like, okay, what am I doing now? What is the next moves after that?
So I think the biggest problem, and even with you're talking about Tony Busby, is that when the allegations come out, you are signing up these cases early, and a lot of times where these cases are coming out, you're riding the news media wave, you're riding all these other aspects of a case. In the end of the day, there's not a significant amount of time period where you can fact check everything. And so, especially when you have somebody like Tony Busby, who's representing, a number of people that are in newsworthy cases where there's allegations against, professional athletes or professionals, you're going to have people reaching out to him early on, and they're going to say, hey, here's my case. And they're going to think that because you were able to achieve this for one person, you'll be able to do the same for me.
Yeah.
And that's, I think the biggest problem is, I'd say about maybe a quarter of the time you'll get misinformation that really plays a vital role into that case. But I think as the value of the news media type case comes in, you're really not getting even half or even less than half of the information that really could be put into play. And so, I mean, especially in this case, you're hearing the allegations and you're saying, hey, let's get the suit filed, because as long as I have a good faith basis that this is what the client's saying, that's why there are these other laws like New York's talking about, where you can say, hey, if you've been given additional information that now questions whether or not this case is legitimate, there's some protection from it, because you want to be able to help the victim or the consumer who's looking for this attorney, but not going after the attorney just for simply being an advocate.
Okay. Right. Oh, and that brings me to actually also just confirm. Many have asked, oh, well, can Jay-Z then sue Busby for defamation? No, he actually cannot, because as lawyers, there's a particular immunity. So, cops have certain immunities. We've heard discussion about that via Trump. With lawyers, the immunity that we have from defamation is critical. There would be no lawyers without this immunity. And that's an immunity that protects any communications we make regarding our cases, because it presumes if we brought a case, we did the due diligence. So as a result, sorry, my nose itching. It don't mean I'm lying. It just means I got too much makeup on. So what it means is that in this instance, where one, Busby dismissed the case, but also Jay-Z he is actually suing for defamation in California. More than likely, Busby is going to be protected in large part from at least some, if not all of the claims, by claiming defamation immunity, which means you are allowed, if the defamation was what was written in a lawsuit by a lawyer, we're immune. Otherwise, big corporations with $1 million pockets like Amazon and stuff, every time their employee sues them for, oh, you didn't pay me as a worker, oh, you mistreated me, blah, 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 we could get sued, the lawyers, for defamation, and we'd never take the case. So it's a very important protection, and it protects the fact that Busby filed the lawsuit, and it also protects any press conferences that Busby made, basically restating the grounds for the lawsuit. So I don't know how Jay-Z is going to get paid, but in the California lawsuit, but that's also part of why Jay-Z is saying justice has not been served.
It just to really add to it is there's allegations and petition. This is what you're alleging based on the information you have at the time. The same thing, just to keep in mind, is every lawsuit, even if the corporation's 100% at fault, they're always going to allege that they're not at fault. And so they're always going to say, oh, we're blaming the victim.
Yeah.
And so it is really something where we're not just saying, oh, this is only helping victims. I mean, literally every corporation who files any answer to a lawsuit is always going to blame the victim, and they're always going to say, prove your case. And so if we were to look at the same aspects and say, okay, you knew you were at fault. You knew all of these other things, but you're going to tell everybody publicly that you're not at fault. It's protects both sides. So it is a completely fair rule, regardless if anybody comes back and says, "Oh, it's not fair because the allegations were slanderous or defamed me." Really, it's somebody who you're representing is going to make the claims that they're alleging, and you're saying, based on the allegations that I received, the information I have, this is what I'm putting forth into the court. It's not the attorney who's at fault for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of prove your case, let's talk about the ASAP Rocky trial.
man. What's going on?
All right. Now, what's your understanding? Because I feel like the general public, which I feel like you represent very well, either only understands like a little piece, which is like, hey, there was a plea that was offered. What's your understanding of what's going on with the ASAP Rocky
To
trial?
my knowledge, I'm kind of all over the place.
'Kay,
I'm hearing that folks was shot at, claims of being shot at. Look, I'm not gonna say that ASAP Rocky he's not capable of it, but I mean, because brother has
guilty. You can
yeah, brother has
jump into
you know
that
what I'm
area.
saying. He has gone to jail on the other side of the world before, so we can't rule out everything.
He spent a whole month in prison,
You know what I'm
and I
saying?
think it was Sweden or Switzerland for cutting up over there.
Yeah, who
That's
was that
right.
the one that
That's
got
a
him
nice
out?
place
Was
to
it
say, though? If you're going to say in prison, that's not a bad place.
man?
Rihanna got him home after a month, but it took a whole month. He had to sit over there. That was for like assaulting a photographer or something like that.
And even with that situation, I was all over the place with it because I didn't know much about
Sure,
it.
sure.
I didn't know.
You
know,
got things to do. You got bills to pay.
man. So even with this, situation, I'm still all over the place, and I'm trying to get a grasp of it. I'm trying to understand it, and that's why I have my legal experts here. You know what I'm saying? So let's go ahead and unpack this case and understand what's really
Sure.
going on.
I'll set it up, and then Brian, I'm gonna toss it to you. All right. So the facts, the allegations is this: that ASAP Rocky shot at Relly. So I'm gonna say Rocky and Relly shot at ASAP Relly in a heated argument. The argument was over the fact that Relly felt like Rocky has, shot to stardom and forgot about everybody. He was upset. He was like, one of us, 12, I think, is still living in the projects with his mama. The other one got this issue. And there was a third guy who passed away. One of the ASAPs passed away. And Relly felt like it was messed up that Rocky did not help. I guess the guy passed away in California, didn't help ship the body or whatever to New York for the family to bury him. And he was talking all types of ways in the streets about Rocky. Rocky got wind of it, was upset. But the truth of the matter is Rocky actually did pay for the funeral. He just didn't advertise it. See, he didn't go around and say, I paid for this funeral. Let's make a social media post, right? So anyway, there was a confrontation, and there was Complex Con where Rocky tried to bring in all the guys. Apparently when Rocky first got his contract, he actually bought a crash pad for all 20 of the other ASAPs and stuff in New York. He's been doing things for them for years.
Yeah.
And because Rocky found out this guy was talking about him and vice versa, they had this confrontation on the LA streets, November 6th, 2021. This is critical. And in that confrontation, which security camera footage found, Rocky pulls out a pow pow. We're going to use YouTube speak. Pulls out a pow pow and is like, what? Pussy ass. And he calls them all the names.
What was that again?
Your pussy ass.
One more time for me.
All of the words. Your pussy ass. All of the words. He calls them these things. But allegedly it was only after Relly saw him and Relly yoked him up. And Relly is 6'3", 6'4". Rocky is 5'9", 5'10". Okay, so he's a lot harder, and Relly pulled him, and then so there's an allegation of a self-defense claim. But my favorite claim, the legal genius of Mr. Joe Tacopina. I'm not saying it right, I'm sure. That's Rocky's lawyer. The defense is, because on camera, it's obvious. It was a pow-pow in Rocky's hand. No questions asked. The defense says this. Oh, because the charge, he only has one charge. Aggravated assault with a semi-automatic weapon. He is not charged with regular assault. He is not charged with simple aggravated assault. It has a semi-automatic weapon. So the defense, it was a fake gun. The defense is it was a prop gun that came from a music video set of Rihanna.
Smart.
Brian, what do you think of that style of lawyering? Oh, and that defense was only revealed on the eve of trial. like 2 days before.
So I will say that one, whatever your critical piece of evidence that the other side can never prepare for it, you do want to wait till you're actually in trial to ever disclose that, because that is a make it or break it type situation, and so it can play a significant part in the jury's mind. But I will say that, man, that's sad if you're using a prop gun from a Rihanna video. That like you can afford more than that, but
Right.
But I will say that it really is something that there are cases, and I mean, Young Thug's case would be a great example of where people are reaching for certain things that are stretching the imagination, because at the end of the day, you are talking about constitutional rights and your life of liberty and freedom. And so, I mean, you're going to employ everything available to be able to defend against that. And so, not surprising. But at the end of the day, I would say you've got a lot of interesting information that you might ask yourself, why don't you take the deal? I mean, that's what I'm asking myself.
Oh yeah, the deal on the table was they offered Rocky 180 days, and that would have been in 180 days. It would have been 3 years of probation and then 7-year suspended sentence. Now, Rocky had a deal on the table. He's playing in a movie with Denzel Washington, produced by Spike Lee. If he would have taken this deal, it probably would have knocked that off the table. He is also on the board or whatever for the Met Gala that will be in May. That would have been off the table as well. And then when you have probation, you can't just travel with, Rihanna and your kids. That was an issue. But here's the thing. He's facing 21 years, but the government wants 8. And the offer, real time, he would have done less than a month, because 180 days in LA County, you do 10% because of the overcrowding. So 10% of 180 days is 18 days. So many were like, why didn't he take it?
Yeah, he could have easily got out of this.
Oh, you could
a
do
little
18
slap
days
the
on your head now.
But
that's where you start looking at publicity and headlines versus, what seems like a very simple answer, which is that, hey, I can do this many days and I can be done with this. But, at the end of the day, you're going to make choices that are affecting your life and your future.
Yeah.
Whereas it doesn't matter if somebody says, hey, you should really look at this and make a decision that's going to be the simplest one for you. When money's involved and fame and publicity.
Mm-hmm. But also,
decisions
I think
aren't as easy.
This is also where 2 things come into play. One, the facts, of course, which we'll get into a little bit deeper dive in that, but also the civil case. So what's also going on simultaneously is immediately after Rocky allegedly shot at this guy, grazing his knuckles, he did not go home and he didn't call 911. He didn't call the ambulance. He called Brian. Not Brian.
He didn't call me, but he called
his
attorney.
civil lawyer. He called his civil lawyer, said, hey, man, I want to sue ASAP Rocky. I want to get him. He shot at me. Will you represent me? That lawyer allegedly told him, I won't represent you unless you bring me some evidence and unless you make a police report. That's what it was. Make a police report. So he didn't call the cops. He didn't call the ambulance. He allegedly goes right back to the scene of the crime, searches around, and finds 2 gun shell casings from the scene. And then 2 days later, gets on an airplane and flies them to an to a New York City police department, where he makes a police report and claims that Rocky shot him. But prior to that, he secures the civil lawyer because he's done what the civil lawyer told him. He is presently suing ASAP Rocky for $30 million. Brian,
oh man,
would you take the case? $30 million, knuckle graze, ASAP Rocky. He's got 2 gun shell casings he collected his goddamn self.
So a couple of things to keep in mind here is when you look at a case, every case has the valuation of what is the value of the potential person who's liable for it. So if there was insurance coverage, which there is none for intentional crime, but if there was, the value of the case is whatever the available insurance is.
That's right.
In this case, what is
Brilliant.
the available recovery that you can make? And here's where it becomes important. When you have a state where you're married in, like California or Texas, what are called community property states, your spouse's income or their wealth is also half yours.
Well,
And
hold
so-
on. It was discovered at the prelims of this trial they are not legally married. And California does not recognize common law marriage. That's why we're talking about it today.
Which is where we go back into, I have had a number of cases where we have actually sued people that have been at fault and they've had significant wealth, and then they will actually get divorced during the case because they want to cut off your ability to access the community estate to make a recovery. And so there are certain states, Texas and California, like I mentioned, that are community property states. So half of everything that your spouse owns is what you own. And so maybe if you're in a divorce, yeah, there's a big feud over it. But in a personal injury setting, if there's no insurance coverage, you're going after the other spouse's, in this case, Rihanna's wealth that would be half of his. And so that's what the claim is. And so that's where you start finding out things like, oh, in fact, we're actually not married.
Gotcha, bitch. Gotcha.
We're obviously in that scenario, somebody saying, hey, wait a second, they're about to make a claim against you. And so that's where these information really becomes public. And maybe they've told everybody they were husband and wife up until the time of this lawsuit. And then they go, wait a second, actually, we're not really married. We've never claimed it. But that's something to keep in mind when it comes to what's the value of the case.
Ooh.
The other side is when you are saying, okay, well, that assets are removed and it's just his separate property, meaning what did
he
he
got
own?
stuff like Rocky ain't no slack on that.
Right.
Yeah.
So
He got stuff.
then you're looking at what can they afford to be able to get rid of, because one thing you got to continue to look at is in every personal injury case, you can always file bankruptcy. And
That's true.
if you owe enough people money, called secured creditors, they can wipe out your assets. And then it's what's left over would be able to pay a personal injury lawsuit. And so,
Ooh, but also with that bankruptcy, this is critical. If it was a criminal case related to the civil, like, so if you committed a crime, you cannot get that wiped out in bankruptcy. So
depending on the
literally,
crime.
depending on the crime?
Right.
Okay. This type of crime qualifies. Like this type of crime, if you got a judgment for an aggravated assault, right? Because that's really bad. Pretty much they shot at you, but you didn't die.
Yeah.
Then you'd have that issue. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is highlighting really where full circle. Why wouldn't you take what seems like such a insignificant plea deal? And it is because in the civil trial, once you plead guilty to
Boom.
a criminal charge, you can't then turn around and say, I'm not guilty of it in the civil case. In fact, that's already been proven. I don't have to prove it.
Right.
And now you've made your way to which the real damages are, which is what they really want to avoid, which is paying real money.
Dun dun did it. Literally. And check this out. ASAP Rocky's lawyers in the civil case are Camille and allegedly Ben from Johnny Depp's case. So Camille was on the legal team that helped Johnny Depp win his case, as well as Ben, and they took it on contingency. So they haven't Relly hasn't paid a dime for these lawyers because people are like, oh, how much did he pay? How much did he lose? He hasn't paid a dime, but they're going for $30 million. To be honest, I feel like they were honestly just too greedy.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So
as an active YN myself, it just smells like you made it to the top without us. We're coming for what we deserve.
Boom.
That's what it feels like to me.
Yes,
the
that's
30
why
M's is
a
just
jury.
crazy.
Yeah, that's why they really wanted a jury that had some of his peers, African American, as in Black people. Not one. There was only 7 Black folks that showed up for jury duty for that one, out of 100. So it was only 7%, and none of those 7 made it because there are eliminating questions that get asked. But I think the same thing. So what the defense, so I'm going to give you a few of the facts that the defense was leaning on as well as the prosecution. And I want you to tell me, as a regular person, if you had been on the jury, how would you be feeling?
Okay,
All
come
right.
on, baby.
So we'll start with the state because it's the easiest. The state is saying, so number one, the state says, hold up. You did not tell us this prop gun defense until the eve of trial. If this was a real defense, you would have been told it to us. Now, us, as civil attorneys, we know that if I would have told you in advance, all you would have did was amended the indictment to include aggravated assault. Baby, It's no denial. Rocky absolutely committed aggravated assault, because aggravated assault is literally just trying to assault you with something that looks like a weapon, right? You don't have to think, it don't have to be real. But they didn't charge him with that. So I wouldn't have told you this so that you could have time to amend the result. I'm going to tell you at a point in time where, nope, you chose semi-automatic. That's the only thing you put on the table. You should have charged me with all of them. I don't know why you didn't. This is stupid.
Right, we're trying the case against the cases charged, not against what potentially should be charged.
Right. And if you're too stupid to figure it out, I'm not about to help you do your job, stupid. So we got that. But then we also have the fact that not only does he immediately pursue the $30 million civil lawsuit in trial, he's taking a stand. He's the world's worst witness. I've never seen a worse witness. Then really. Okay. Number that, plus the fact that Relly doesn't answer the questions asked. He answers what he feels like answering. And he'll try to figure out where the lawyer is going with the question before he answers it. If he can't figure it out, he says, I don't recall. Well, on the stand.
Which also makes the jury extremely upset and feel like they're wasting their time. And so all you're doing in that process is building a jury who goes, yeah, I can't trust you, and you're lying.
Yeah, it smells very fishy.
It does smell fishy. But wait a minute. I've never heard of a case where the victim, instead of going to the hospital, returned to the scene to locate shell casings.
He's not a victim.
No! Boom.
Now, I would say that's just actually a victim that is very focused on capturing evidence. And so that could be very helpful, except for the fact that it would make sense to go get treated first.
Right. And he takes a photo of what he says is the casing, and he sends it to like one of ASAP's friends and was like, I'm about to be rich. So there's a text message that says, I'm about to be rich.
If you're going to create evidence, don't create bad evidence. That's important.
And then he has another text message that says, there's another one that says, there were audio recordings. So he's calling the other ASAPs. In one of the audio recordings, he said the one guy is telling him, hey, why don't get the police involved? Like, y'all just work this out amongst yourself. He was like, why you got to get a police and lawyer? He says, I had to get a lawyer because without a lawyer, it's extortion.
See?
Now too much going on.
That tells you that he's following the correct avenues.
Yeah, and then he says, wait a minute. So this is a good PI client, personal injury client, who understands the goal but has executed it poorly, because he also says, yeah, no, I had to get a lawyer because otherwise it's extortion. He said, but I'm not going to show up at trial. See, if he just pays me, I'm not going to show up. And then it's going to be like, you don't have no witness, right? So it's like a domestic violence case. This is what he says in the audio. It's like a domestic violence case where the victim don't show up. Like, he gets found not guilty because ain't nobody there. This was played to the jury.
So another important point is, if you have an attorney, let them speak for you, because everything you're about to say can be used against you.
Literally. And nothing your attorney says can be, because it's either considered part of settlement negotiations or attorney-client privilege between the two of you. So in the end, what the jury has, they're currently, as of the day that we're recording this, they're in deliberations. And what they're trying to determine is, was he actually was he assaulted with a real gun? So that's the other thing. So the prosecution has the burden of proof. Here they have to prove two really hard things. Number one, they have to prove that it was a real gun, not a prop gun. And ASAP Rocky called not one but two witnesses that said it was a prop gun. One of the witnesses said they saw a prop gun in his hands on the day of this incident, and that he knows it was a prop gun. This guy is ASAP Luke. He knows it was a prop gun because he got it from Rihanna's music video set a month or two prior, and that he returned it to the owner. So, because my question was, yeah, if it's a real prop gun, why didn't y'all bring it into court? Case closed, right? He says, well, I tried. He says, this happened in November. In January, I took the prop gun. In January, I called the producer of the music video. I gave it back to him, or they gave it back to him shortly after. But then he called the producer of the music video after Rocky had been charged and said, hey, where's the gun? And the producer said, I don't know. It's like this studio, right? Where you got a lot of people coming in and out. You got props. He said, I don't know. People take stuff and leave all the time. And now that I've like worked in the studio, I'm like, that's actually really hella believable, right?
Very true.
Very true.
Yeah, nothing's registered to
It's
anybody.
registered. And mind you, it's supposed to be a prop gun, which is a fake pow pow. But more importantly, when he returned the weapon, that was January of 22. Rocky was not even arrested until 4 months later. In other words, it's not evidence until you're arrested and charged with something. So it's not tampering with evidence. It's not destroying evidence. It's not any of those things because y'all didn't even try. And the fact that it takes that much to even that long from November to the following April to bring charges, I think in the jury's mind is going to make them say, well, the police didn't think this was a shut and dry close in the first place.
That just is a safety gram here in Texas. You should not be carrying around a prop gun.
Please don't.
You will get shot,
I've
in
seen
your
a few
face.
people. I've seen a few people, and it's like, dog, please don't do it. Please.
Nobody seems to be intimidated by them if they actually have real guns.
No. And the assumption is that it's a real gun and you're going to get pow-powed right back.
Thank you. Because that's most cases how it turns out. Like,
right.
Being in Dallas, that's happened, and I've been in the situation.
Oh,
well,
Cliff,
not me personally,
that's
but I've been in
right.
the
You're
environment.
not the guy that showed up at the Rockets game with the knife on you,
I
right?
am that guy.
All right.
Your local YN, man. It's
Oh,
me.
my
You
goodness.
know what I'm saying?
Safety
But-
first. Safety conscience.
There
I
you
do
go.
have one more. I don't know if y'all got
Go
enough
for
time.
it.
I have a bonus case
Okay.
because I'm very intrigued to see how this plays out.
Let's hear it.
I'm almost certain y'all have seen it. Dank the Moss, the
Oh.
rapper.
I'm so
Lift.
aggravated.
Mm-hmm.
Please,
Personally,
whoever's doing graphics, put the graphic on.
it looks like she's contradicting herself.
Put
but
the
from our
video
legal experts, what is
Do you know,
what is
Brian? I'll
what
give
y'all
you
will see?
You
What do
know,
y'all see coming
let's hear
forth?
your take on the initial facts.
Okay, this is this big old girl who called, she about 400, she's like
She's
430 pounds. She's not thick. That is an insult to my thick sisters out there.
Real
sisters,
thick. Real
cousins, Caucasians, whoever you are that are actually thick. She is 4 people deep. Okay, she's 4 deep. Okay?
Oh man.
She
I
can
don't
sit
know
in
if
her
that's
own
that's
booth.
a thing, but okay.
Nobody else has to visit.
Mhm.
She got her own booth, okay? And it's 4 of them. She called an Uber somewhere in Michigan. The Uber driver in his little clown car looked at her and said, "Oh, I can do it. I can do it." He said, "Oh, no, you can't fit in here. No, 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 no." Now, I have to say, this happened to me before when I was 130 pounds. It was Janae Mills based out of Jacksonville, Florida.
Wait, how many people is that? 130.
That's one.
That's just one person?
It's
Okay.
one good
I had
person.
to clarify.
When
I
I
had
was
to
in law
clarify.
school at Cornell Law, Janae had this drop top and she had this Impala with the rims and she had a speaker system in the back.
Mm.
And it was a homegirl in the front and I was like, "Hey, can you just give me a ride in the back?" And she was like, "No, I
giving,
can't."
like training day
You're
flashbacks
gonna,
there.
because she wouldn't let me do it. She said I was gonna mess up her rims, her system, all of the above. I was 130 pounds. So I'm just saying, if me and my 130 could do some damage, her and her 430
Yeah.
could do a lot of other damage. But what she's
Change the
doing now,
world.
Brian. So the question is this: she's suing Uber because the driver, or Lyft, because the driver would not let her get in the car. The driver said, "You gotta call a Lyft XL." You got to call
Yeah,
the
that was
XL.
pretty crazy.
And
to me.
she's angry and she's mad and she's doing a media tour to talk about her lawsuit. And somebody took her case. Brian, would you take the case? Tell us why. Or why not?
So I wouldn't take the case because it's more of a discrimination case, but it does have flashback moments of 90-day last resort.
Yes,
with,
I love that show.
with potentially some body shaming.
They could be there.
Although
Some people need to get ashamed.
the,
It's a point where you
the
need to be
facts-
ashamed. Stay way, don't turn the other way.
the facts of it though does not seem like, so this is what you always got to keep in mind is what are the damages that you can prove you suffered as a result of it.
Humiliation. That's it. But you put that bitch on Instagram. You humiliated yourself. When nobody know, it'd be you and the Uber driver who makes like $15 an hour.
But you can also just jump in the difference saying, okay, I ordered Uber Black and now it's got this Escalade that shows up. What's the difference between the price? And then I say, hey, you owe me this amount. But
I like that. That's reasonable.
at the end of the day, I can say that there is a lot of situations where people can be hurt by the accusation. I mean, that, the statements that have been made. And I think that we're building up in a society where we're saying, hey, there's things that are PC that you can't say. Nothing involved with the current presidency. But that said, I think you're also dealing with what we call a nuisance value case, where Lyft or the driver is going to be looking at what is the write-off amount.
Let's talk about what that looks like. What do you think that looks like with your experience as an injury attorney?
So when we talk about a nuisance value case, we're talking about a case where the business world of it, or the insurance company, is going to say, hey, how much money do I have to pay to defend against this versus just pay it to go away?
Right.
And so,
and by defend against it, just elaborate. What they mean is, how much will I have to pay lawyers to file shit to make it, file stuff to make it go away, for printer paper, for all of that? Because that's how we charge.
Because you got to keep in mind that some of the law firms that represent Lyft or Uber are charging anywhere from $175 an hour all the way up to $300, $400 an hour. And so when you're talking about writing motions, you're talking about doing all these other things. They're calculating, okay, if I'm about to spend $5,000 defending against this thing on initial discovery, and then I'm going to spend for a deposition potentially another $4,000 or $5,000, and then potentially at trial I'm going to end up spending like $30,000 to $50,000. So the valuation of like how far we're going to go is going to continue to increase. But at the end of the day, you're looking at, it all comes back to, what are the damages? What can you prove? And most of the time, your client's not going to
prove she's 432 pounds.
You're not going to be able to prove. You're not going to be able to prove unless you went to a psychologist or a therapist.
Yeah.
She went to the Breakfast Club because she thought it was going to be some more food.
That was pretty crazy to me.
Yeah.
Did you see the clip?
No. I would like to stay neutral.
Yeah. I'm not neutral. I'm just going to say.
Now, let me add this. I do want to add this. So I did a little research on this in advance for this, and I have covered this on my YouTube channel.
Girl, is that legal?
Girl, is that legal? And I'm freaking mad, okay? Freaking, because I'm a good Catholic woman. All right, so this happened in the state of Michigan. Michigan is one of two states, Michigan and Washington State, that has a law that protects discrimination against big old people, okay? Now, as a result, that is the basis under which they filed this lawsuit. That lawsuit says, in the same way you cannot discriminate Black people or gay people or whatever, you cannot discriminate against big old people. Okay, fat people. But even with that law, so that's the law under which they filed the petition. I believe that as applied to this situation, she was supposed to order a Uber XL, like we've talked about. So I don't believe it's not a matter of Lyft not accommodating people. So because obesity, it's considered obesity, and obesity is considered a handicap, a disability. But the fact is, for me, it's no different than if Lyft had a button that said wheelchair girls. Okay, you need a wheelchair, you click this button. Okay. Then that be the same for her. She know good and well she big. She need to take the one that says 5 people, because the driver is one. She's 4 of the people. The driver is 1 of the people.
I mean, really, you put that same situation together when you talk about. Look, in all seriousness,
shit, I'm mad at her.
I feel bad for the people that know that they need to buy 2 seats for an airline ticket.
I do too.
That they need the special seat belt. But they pay for that, and then they give no designation that this other seat is not available.
That's not right, because the other person tries to sit there and like, walk her.
But at the same time, to your point, which is, if you know that you are not going to fit in this, don't order this.
Yeah.
Wait, ma'am, you were being cheap.
Did she just say white?
No, I said, ma'am. I didn't say white. I said, ma'am, you know good and well you're 4 people deep. Therefore, you need to order. They need to ban you from the app until you put in 4 or more. That's what it should be.
There should be an accuracy setting.
Oh,
if you're going on a dating app, you can't start claiming that you're 6'2". Now, I'll tell you, earlier today.
What about the weight? Can you say if you really 430?
I just want to say earlier today, Marty B, he's got to be 6'7".
I feel like that's the type of shit she do.
And Silk, he's got to be at least like 6'5". And if they're that tall,
Silk not satin.
I like to be able to say that I'm almost 6 feet.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
I definitely put
But
it on my
overall,
driver's license.
we definitely want to follow. I'm definitely going to follow on my channel Dank's case, which is, girl, is that legal? I want to follow it. I want to see what happens in the state. What I anticipate will happen is that Lyft is going to pay a nuisance value case. I think that Lyft behind the scenes is going to make the argument to her lawyer, say, hey, she should have ordered a 4-seater. She's a party of 4, 3 to 4, arguably. And because she didn't, we think if we go to trial, because here's the thing. The people of the state of Michigan, they got better shit to worry about. Some of them ain't got no water.
Yeah, facts.
You got Flint in it. They're not worried about a big girl who wants a $12 Uber.
Because honestly, if I'm be real, once again, just speaking as a civilian, just look like you're just trying to get paid.
It does.
Honestly.
There's nothing wrong
It
with getting
looks
paid,
like a
just so
really
you know.
big slip and fall.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
You just looking
No
like you're trying to come up on some
Mhm.
bread. And, I'm not opposed to it. If you get off with it, congratulations. But I don't think that this is something that you really can fight, especially going on the Breakfast Club. You sit down in a chair, you say, y'all ain't got no other chair, then
No, the world is not
They
supposed
pull it
to
out and-
accommodate your egregiousness.
then
Now
you
I'm
world
say
is not
accommodation.
supposed to
Now I'm a fan
accommodate
of
your
Breakfast Club,
excess.
so just so you know, it's a nice place to eat for any brunch. But I want to tell
there's
you,
one here in Houston.
I want to tell you one thing that is no accident. This is a shout out here to the amazing Simone. Now, I'm not talking about her braids today. Braids are a beautiful thing. If you're rocking them, I'm a fan. But Simone, there is something different. We took this trip to Dubai, came back. You look totally different. What's going on with you?
Shut up. So Brian came with me. So I had my own trip to Dubai planned, and then Brian invited himself. So what's different is I got me a
It
little
felt like an
facelift.
invite.
I got a little nose. What was that?
I said it felt like an invite.
No, you were invited. You were invited. It was an invite. Yes. But I got me a little facelift, so I'm a little swollen. You guys got to give me about 60 more days. I'll be back. I'll look a little different. Brian was an excellent, he was an excellent travel partner. I don't know what his status is today as the date of filming or whatever, but if he's single or whatever, but you can take him somewhere. First of all, he has a passport. But yes, I got me a little facelift, a little. Yeah, so right here, I'm a little swollen. That's what's going on. But yeah, we're gonna see how my nose works out. Little tweak. I told y'all, but I warned y'all. I told y'all I was going. I said, don't try me. I'm gonna give me some money. I got me a nice little settlement from one of my cases for a client, and I got me some Ozempic. A little stab that in there, and then I got one over there to Turkey, and I got me a little nose and a little facelift.
So we took a ton of pictures out there. Dubai, if you haven't been there, Dubai with anybody is okay, but Dubai with Simone is a completely different experience. Got some great before and afters. Waiting to see how those come out. But that said,
Was that both of y'all first time going over there?
No, it was my fourth
first time. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I didn't tell you about the sexual proposition I got. Go ahead, finish. It's Valentine's Day.
That did not come from me
No, it wasn't
at all.
No, but it was. Did I tell you about the proposition I got? The sexual.
No, but was it?
So
was
we
it
had this
worth
amazing
money?
suite, by the way. It was a 4-bedroom.
4-bedroom.
Yeah, we had a 4-bedroom suite on the marina. So we were all living our best lives, but kind of like separately. And then one of my old boos, because this was my 4th time going there. He is now a retired Dubai soccer player. Because in my youngin' years, the athletes loved me. And it was really sweet. He came over, he brought us liquor because over there it's hard to get. You can only get at the airport. And that was like his love exchange. And he asked me if I would want to give him an illegitimate child.
Nobody else was asked this question. If we were included in this with the potential profitable offers, we could have all given input, but that was not the discussion. I was actually not even there when this happened.
Really? You weren't. Yeah, he asked me if I would give him his first illegitimate child. He's 46 years old. He's a retired soccer player. Allegedly has just, he has an import-export business, Nigerian. He's not a scammer, I did check from my...
He's got real Nigerian money.
Yeah, allegedly. And he asked me, and I just really, what was it about me and my loins that you thought this would be a good idea? So, anyone who knows me, if you've been following my channel, Girl, Is That Legal on YouTube, I don't believe in getting impregnated by anyone whose wages are not garnishable. And there's no international garnishment treaty, so I had to decline. Yeah, at this point.
It's reasonable.
Thank
You
you.
didn't ask for proof of funds?
No, he couldn't give them to me. He couldn't give them to me. But we did talk about it. I said, and so he told me his little proposition. He was like, I'd love for you to have my first child. I don't have any children. I'm 46 years old. Blah, blah, blah. I'm ready. And I looked him dead in his face and I said, well, you're going to have to get a 2-bedroom, right? He said, of course, my darling. Of course. All I know is I'm not bringing my illegitimate child back home into a 1-bedroom where their bassinet is equilateral to the refrigerator.
Now, that said, I will just give a simple offering of an amazing experience. If Simone or Shona or the amazing women that took a trip out to Dubai ever say they are going to travel, you should take them up on the offer. It will be an experience.
Yeah. But do not have no baby where, if you get pregnant by that man, that bassinet's going to be
You should bring proof
parallel to the refrigerator. And it was a half fridge at that. It wasn't a full-size fridge. It was like the one in the dorm size in the dorm. Oh my God. I can't even put out a milk in there.
Oh,
I'm
Lord.
be struggling.
And that was Simone's clap back.
Yeah, that's it. Well, thank you guys. We really appreciate you guys for joining us for another episode of
Call Your Attorney, man. Hello, I got free promo for y'all.
Yeah,
right?
thank you.
If you heard it work, you know what I'm saying? Tap in with our guy, Brian. You know what I'm saying?
And you're hurt in a car accident.
You are hurt in a car accident. Tap in, or you can go to Girl, Is That Legal?
Yes, and
On
actually,
YouTube.
I work with Brian on the majority of my cases. So you're going to get a 2-for-1 here, guys.
Indeed.
You're welcome.
Like I said, man, we got legal experts here. You know what I'm saying? This is Call Your Attorney. Back with another episode. Hopefully we gave y'all great information that y'all can use in y'all real time. You know what I'm saying? And honestly, I appreciate y'all time. Honestly.
We appreciate you too, boo. Thank you.
Got a little knowledge in here. And we gone, man.
Awesome.
Peace.